thought when I saw the press release.
Yeah.
I wanted to know, when did you find out that benefits might not be funded, and how did you find out?
We found out Monday morning, and it was a phone call to our director. She received a phone call saying, "Hey, it looks like SNAP benefits will not be filled at the state level should the government shutdown continue." And obviously, this is probably a negotiation tactic, but it's very serious. And so, to what extent you can start planning contingency measures to try and backfill would be good. And so that's what we did right away is obviously looking at structural pieces where we can support local food banks and looking at anything that they need, whether it be administrative support or, anything that we can do as an organization to try and help them because their demand is going to be huge right now. In fact, I talked with Food for Lane County yesterday, and they were saying that they're seeing an unprecedented amount of folks coming in and getting food, stockpiling. They're worried, that they've heard the news that SNAP benefits may in fact not be allocated in November. And so, it's a tough time of year, not just because of the weather, but because kids have holidays. There's Veterans Day, there's Thanksgiving, and when you're home all day, that means no free lunches from school. It means snacks have to be given out. It means just more food is used at home, and so parents are worried, and they should be. But besides just the amount of food and looking at that from a planning standpoint, there's also a nutritional factor, and that's really kind of what our press release focused on. In talking with our health officer, it was eye-opening to me as a parent. Obviously, I do my very best to try and give my kids a balanced diet. I mean, we really try hard on that, and it can be challenging, even when you have enough money to go to the grocery store and buy what you need. So I can't imagine, having to figure out how to make ends meet, use the SNAP benefits, use what little money you have, and try to piece that together in order to create a balanced diet for your children. But when you take out a considerable amount of input into that, it's going to be such a huge challenge. And the health benefits, or I mean, the health impacts are immediate. Immediately, if a kid does not get a balanced diet and one day they start to experience cognitive decline, they start to experience, within that cognitive piece, it's difficult for them to pay attention, to sit still, there are behavioral impacts, and then certainly there are long-term physical ramifications. And, from a public health standpoint, we're very concerned about that. If this lasts all the way through November, then we could be facing some health impacts to our kids for a very long time down the road. And whether it be heart disease, type 2 diabetes, the chances for that are increased, developmental impacts. The list goes on and on. Food, good, healthy food is so, so important. And when that is pulled out, especially suddenly without a lot of ability to plan for it, the impacts can be dire.
I know 75,000, maybe more people in Lane County use SNAP. Do you know the number for how many children are impacted?
I should have that off the top of my head, but I don't. I do know that the majority of SNAP recipients are part of a family, that the amount of individuals that utilize SNAP is a minority as compared to the amount of families. So while that doesn't give you a firm number, it does speak to the fact that what we're talking about here are a lot of kids, and a huge impact there.
So, with it being such a big chunk of their nutrition being potentially pulled away, how can your ask that the community chip in and donate to these pantries, how can it make an impact?
Well, these pantries, especially Food for Lane County, and there are a lot of ways that folks can access food in our community, not just Food for Lane County. Food for Lane County is one of the largest, food banks and well-organized food banks, and certainly one that we work with quite often. But there are lots of different avenues in which people can access food, churches, other nonprofits. There are, but speaking purely to Food for Lane County, they specialize in ensuring that balanced diet. So it's not just food, it's healthy food and making sure that if a community member needs that food, there are no barriers. You come in, there's no judgment, there's no assessment to make sure that you don't make enough money or you don't have food at home. If you present yourself and say, "Hey, I need food," here it is. And that's really what folks need right now. I think we need to remember too that these folks are in the situation, this particular situation, by no doing of their own. This has been placed on them, and so making sure that those barriers, including the dignity piece, that folks feel as though they can present to a food bank and still hold their head high, and they absolutely should, especially if they're doing so to try and provide for their family. There is nothing wrong with that, and there is nothing for folks to be ashamed of. So what folks can expect is a very easy process. In our press release, we put that website where you can, put your location, and they can let you know where the nearest site is that you can pick up food. Food can also be delivered if you're in a situation where you can't leave home. Um, but it's incredibly easy, and we really urge folks to access that. Also, I think speaking, to the folks in our community who might be an advocate for those individuals who are in need of food during this potential shortage, now is the time to really step up and make sure that those folks have what they need. Just understanding the fact that it can be embarrassing and it can be hard, especially if you're used to just going in and swiping your card, with your SNAP benefits. That's pretty easy and pretty incognito to have to go down and physically go and look someone in the eyes and say, "I need food. I can't make ends meet." That's rough, and I think we need to acknowledge that and step up and try and wrap our arms around those folks during this hard time. Finally, I'll just add this on, even though you didn't ask. There's an economic impact, right? Because this is money, this is federal money coming into our community that enables these folks to go to local grocery stores, Saturday market, other places where they can buy local, fresh food and support farmers and support small grocery stores and small family-owned businesses. That money's going away. So 75,000 people who have that money in their account that transfer that to businesses are not going to be able to do so in November if this comes to fruition. So the economic impact to the general community is also big. So I think just kind of thinking about this from a full perspective, having no political angle whatsoever, but just what is the impact locally to our community? It's going to be big.
Awesome. That was perfect. Thank you, Jason. You've answered all my questions.
Yep, no problem. Yeah, my heart really goes out to those folks. It's tough. I've been on food stamps, in my younger years, and it can be, just a completely clutch to make ends meet, just to connect the dots. And so, if that's just yanked out from underneath you, it's going to be tough. And kudos to Food for Lane County for being so willing to step up. I don't know how they're going to handle it, if they end up being the full, the primary resource for folks, because I just don't know if there's enough to go around, which is quite frankly why we're asking for help. Is just to make sure that these food banks have enough to give out. And certainly, I think your physical donations of food that you're not using in your pantry or in your fridge, that's healthy, good food, is very appreciated. But also, if you can write a check, if you can scrape up a little bit of money, that would go a long ways as well.
All right. Thank you, Jason. Thank you so much.